My wife went to look at an apartment being sold by a foreign owner. I kept quiet and pretended I didn't understand German, but then I heard one sentence that made me freeze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tr is to why. It was supposed to be just another day, another routine. Anna was always excited about finding a new place, the perfect apartment, something we could move forward in. But the words she said, so casually, in German words I could understand, shattered something inside me. That's when I knew things had gone too far. We'd been married for almost 10 years, and in all that time, I'd grown used to being the background character in our story. Anna had always been the one to make decisions. She chose where we lived, what we did, even what we ate. I was a silent passenger, tagging along in her version of our life. It didn't used to be like that. In the beginning, things were different. We were partners. She used to ask me what I thought. We used to laugh, plan together, dream about the future. But somewhere along the way, all that faded. Now, when we walked through these apartments, it was all just part of the routine. I didn't care. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. This was just another one of her plans, another decision I wouldn't have a say in. But then, when I heard her voice, her tone so casual, so sure, it hit me like a slap. I could hear her speaking with the seller, asking about the building's amenities, the neighborhood. Then, she said something about the price, and I froze. He's asking for a lot, don't you think? But we'll get him out. We always do. That was the sentence. I'm sure it didn't mean much to her, but to me, it was a punch in the gut. I wasn't sure why it bothered me so much. Maybe it was the way she said it. Or, maybe it was just the realization that I wasn't even part of the conversation. That I had been excluded, once again, from a decision that affected both of us. I pretended I didn't hear, didn't understand. I kept my face neutral, forced myself to nod along as she spoke to the seller in English. But the truth was, I couldn't get that sentence out of my head. We always get them down. As if it was a game. As if this was just another move she controlled. Another situation where she held all the power. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't want to acknowledge what I had just overheard. I had spent years ignoring the subtle ways she dismissed my opinions, my desires, my thoughts. But in that moment, I couldn't keep pretending. The truth was, I was tired. I was tired of being invisible. I was tired of being her husband, instead of thou person, in my own right. And when she turned to me, asking what I thought about the layout of the apartment, I realized something. It didn't matter what I thought. She had already made up her mind. It had already been decided. I was silent. I always was. Because what was the point of speaking if my words never reached her? So, I let her do the talking. Let her tell me why this place would be the perfect home. As if I could just go along with whatever she chose again. But deep down, something inside me was changing. The more I thought about that sentence, the more I realized how much of my life had been taken away. How many times had I nodded along, pretending things were fine? How many times had I swallowed my words just to keep the peace? But today, something felt different. Something inside me, something I hadn't noticed in years, was waking up. As we moved from room to room, I could hear the excitement in Anna's voice. The way she detailed every possible future moment in this new apartment. The view from the balcony, the space for a garden, the perfect spot for a home office. She painted a picture of a life we were supposed to build here, a life I was supposed to be a part of. But the truth was, I wasn't included in her vision. Not really. We'd been looking at condos for weeks. But each place she showed me felt more like a checklist than a dream. The layout was always off, the neighborhood wasn't ideal, the price was too high. But none of that mattered. Anna had already decided. I didn't have to worry about the details. All I had to do was show up, nod, and pretend that I was part of the process. As we walked through the living room of this latest place, I stared out the window at the city below, my mind drifting. I could hear Anna's voice in the background, describing how the furniture would fit perfectly in the space. How we'd host dinner parties, have guests over, build a life here. It felt like a dream, but a dream that didn't include me. It felt like she was building a life for herself, with me as a mere accessory. But I didn't say anything. What would be the point? Whenever I tried to voice my opinion, it was brushed aside. When I questioned the choices she made, she'd look at me like I didn't understand, like I was a child. I remember the first time I voiced my concern about the budget for a vacation. I suggested we might want to tone it down a bit, maybe take a shorter trip. Anna laughed it off, saying we deserved it. "You're just being cheap," she said. And that was that. The trip was booked, and I went along with it, as I always did. This was no different. I wanted to protest, to say something, anything that would make her listen. But what was the point? The apartment would be bought, whether I liked it or not. She'd always had the final say. And somewhere along the way, I'd lost the ability to fight back. I glanced over at her. And she caught my eye, waiting for my opinion on the space. She was looking for approval, a silent confirmation that we would move forward. That this was our future. But what did I think? I couldn't even remember what I wanted anymore. What was it that I used to dream about? A house by the lake. A small place where we could start over, without all the pretension and showiness. But Anna had her own ideas. And I had stopped fighting against them long ago. Every suggestion I made was always dismissed. I had learned to keep my thoughts to myself, to just go along with whatever she decided. And now, standing in this pristine apartment, I realized I had become a spectator in my own life. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the time that had passed without me even noticing how much I'd changed. It wasn't that I hadn't tried to speak up, to share my thoughts. It was that I had been worn down by her constant dismissal. The little jokes about my hobbies, my passions. The way she made fun of me for caring about the things I did. First it was yoga. Then it was painting. The list went on, each one more ridiculous than the last. "You're going to quit this in a month. Just like everything else," she'd say, her voice dripping with condescension. And I let her. I let her make me feel small. I let her make me believe that my dreams weren't important. That what I wanted didn't matter. I stopped trying to prove her wrong. Stopped trying to show her that I was capable of more. Instead, I just sat back and watched as she made every decision. As she led us through life without me. "Do you like it?" she asked, her voice snapping me out of my thoughts. I forced a smile, nodded, and told her it was nice. Of course, it was nice. It was exactly the kind of apartment she wanted. Big, fancy, expensive. Everything had to be just so. But was it really what I wanted? Or had I just stopped caring? I knew what would happen next. We'd sign the papers, move in, and I'd settle into the life she had already planned for us. She'd tell me what to do, where to go, and I'd quietly follow. Pretending it didn't bother me. Pretending that I was okay with it all. But deep down, I wasn't okay. I hadn't been for a long time. It was like I was living someone else's life. Watching from the sidelines as she built her own. And I had no idea how to change that. How to break free from this invisible cage I'd created for myself. As we left the apartment and walked back to the car, the weight of the moment hung over me. It was just another day, another decision made without my input. But something had shifted. I wasn't sure what it was yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living like this. And then, as I drove home with Anna beside me, I felt the tiniest spark of something inside me that had been dormant for years. A part of me that was starting to wake up. I didn't know where it would lead. But I knew one thing: I couldn't keep letting her control everything. Not anymore. The drive home was quiet. Anna had already started talking about the furniture she wanted to buy for the new apartment. What kind of couches, what color the walls should be, whether we should go for hardwood or carpet in the bedrooms. She spoke with so much certainty, as if everything was already decided. As if we were just going through the motions now, ticking boxes, waiting for the next step. I was numb to it by now. The endless list of choices she made. The way she moved through life like a bulldozer, making decisions and not stopping to ask if anyone else might have a say. It wasn't just the apartment, it was everything. Every single thing. My hobbies, my work, the vacations we took, even the food we ate. Everything was planned, organized, and set in stone. And I had become a bystander in my own life. I had never questioned her decisions until recently. At first, I convinced myself it didn't matter. After all, she had good taste, a good head on her shoulders. She was driven, assertive. Those were all traits I admired about her when we first met. But somewhere along the way, her confidence had turned into something more. It became control. Subtle at first, but over time, it had taken hold of every aspect of our relationship. I tried to remember when I stopped fighting it. When I stopped caring enough to assert myself. I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but I knew it had been a long time ago. Maybe it started when we moved in together. Maybe it was the first time I suggested we do something. and she brushed it off. Or the first time I expressed interest in something, and she laughed it off. I could hear her voice now, echoing in my head. You're just being dramatic. Why do you care about this stuff? It didn't take long for me to stop speaking up. And once I did, I started to fade into the background. Her words became my thoughts, her desires became my own, until I didn't know where she ended and I began. I was no longer an equal partner. I was just someone who went along for the ride. But now, after hearing her speak so freely in front of the cellar, it hit me. I wasn't part of this. I was invisible. This apartment wasn't about us, it was about her. She didn't even consider what I wanted. She didn't even notice that I had stopped speaking, stopped offering suggestions. I wasn't even part of the conversation anymore. I had been living like this for so long, accepting my role as secondary, that I didn't realize how much I'd lost. I had become someone I didn't recognize, a man who had stopped believing in himself. A man who let someone else define his worth. And then there was the secret. The German. The language I had learned in secret, just to give myself something to hold on to. At first, it was just curiosity. I didn't want to get caught up in something meaningless, but it had grown on me. It became my escape, my way of being myself in a life where I had slowly forgotten who I was. I remembered the first time I decided to take it seriously. I was in the living room, alone, after Anna had gone out for a meeting. I pulled out my textbook and started going through the exercises. It felt like a rebellion, even though it was something so small. As if I was finally doing something for me. I wasn't doing it for her approval. I wasn't doing it because it was practical. I was doing it because it was something that mattered to me. Something that was mine. That night, I practiced until late. And I remember thinking how strange it felt to have something in my life that wasn't tied to her. Something I didn't have to ask permission for. Something that was mine. I didn't tell her about it, of course. She wouldn't have understood. I didn't want to give her the chance to dismiss it, to belittle it. So I kept it to myself. And then, when I overheard her speaking German with the seller, it all clicked. That sentence, "We always get them down," wasn't just a remark about the apartment. It was a reminder of everything I had been missing. The way Anna had always controlled everything. Always manipulated the narrative, always made the decisions. And there I was, sitting quietly in the background, pretending not to understand, pretending that it didn't matter. But it did matter. It mattered more than I realized. I wasn't just a passive observer anymore. I wasn't just going to accept this life of invisibility. The German, the secret language I'd learned, had become more than just a hobby. It was my way of seeing through the illusion. Of understanding the truth that no one had bothered to show me. That night, I lay in bed next to Anna, her breathing steady as she slept, and I thought about everything. About the apartment, about our life together, and about what I wanted from the future. I didn't know how to make her see me again, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep hiding in the shadows of my own life. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I didn't have it next. But for the first time in years, I felt something inside me stir. Something that had been buried for so long. A sense of self, a sense of purpose. It felt foreign and familiar at the same time, like waking up from a long sleep. The next day, I woke up early. I didn't feel tired. Even though I had barely slept, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the man who had let so much slip by, and for the first time, I didn't see a shadow. I saw a person. A person who was ready to step out of the background and into his own life. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to find out. And I knew I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. It wasn't until the evening that I finally confronted Anna. We had been moving through the motions of dinner, the same tired routine we had every night. She talked about the apartment again. As if it was already a done deal. As if there was no room for discussion. But I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I couldn't just sit there and listen to her plan our life without me in it. "Anna," I said, my voice low but firm, "we need to talk." She glanced at me, momentarily distracted from her phone, and raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "We're fine, Alexander. I'm just planning, you know. Making sure everything goes smoothly." "About the apartment," I pressed, ignoring the casualness in her tone. "About everything." She sighed, as if I were dragging her away from something more important. "What's there to talk about? I've already found the perfect place. It's a great investment and you've seen the pictures. You like the layout, right? I nodded, though I didn't feel the same excitement that she did. I liked the layout. But that's not what I want to talk about. Anna stopped, her eyes narrowing as she set her phone down. Then what? I hesitated. How did I even begin? How could I explain the months, no, the years of feeling like I wasn't a real part of this marriage? How could I explain the resentment that had been building up, quietly at first, and then louder as time went on? But I had to say something. I had to make her see me, to make her understand what this was doing to me. I overheard you talking to the seller yesterday, I said quietly. When you were discussing the price and how you'd get him to lower it. I heard everything. She froze. For the first time in a long while, I saw her expression shift from that practiced smile to something more genuine. But there was no apology in her eyes, just a flash of defensiveness. She started. But I wasn't finished. You said we always get them down. I continued, the words coming out harder than I intended. As if this was just a game. As if this wasn't something we should both agree on. You make all the decisions, Anna, you always have. And I'm just supposed to go along with it. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand to stop her. No, let me finish. I've been silent for too long. I've let you take the lead on everything, and I thought it didn't matter. I thought I could just sit back and let you take charge. But it's not okay anymore. I'm not okay with it. Her face flushed, and she stood up, pacing in front of me, trying to maintain some semblance of control. You're blowing this out of proportion, Alexander. I'm doing this for us, for our future. I thought you'd be happy that I'm making these decisions. You're always so focused on your work, on everything else. I'm just trying to make things better. Better for who? I shot back. For you. For both of us. Or just for you. I stood up too, feeling the heat rise in my chest. I haven't had a say in anything for years. The vacations, the house, even the damn apartment. You've made every decision. And I've just gone along with it. I've lost myself in this, Anna. And now, I realize I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I want, because you've always told me what to want. She stood there, frozen for a moment, staring at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. What are you saying? That I've controlled everything? Wes. I replied sharply. I've let you. I've let you run this whole thing. And I've been a bystander. But I'm done. I'm done pretending that I don't matter, that my thoughts don't count. Anna took a deep breath, trying to regain control of the situation, but I could see it in her eyes. She was shocked. This wasn't how she expected me to react. I wasn't the quiet, passive man she had gotten so used to. You don't get it, Alexander, she said slowly, her voice dropping a few tones. I'm doing this for us. I'm making decisions because you won't. You don't care about these things. You never have. I shook my head. That's not true, I care. I care more than you know. But every time I try to say something, you shut me down. Every time I have an idea, you tell me it's not worth it, it's not important. I've become invisible in my own life. And I'm tired of it. Anna looked away. Her gaze flickering for a moment, as if she were weighing her next words. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us. Well, you're not. I replied, my voice hardening again. Because the truth is, I'm not even part of these decisions anymore. You make them and I follow. But not anymore. There was a silence between us, thick and heavy. Anna didn't know what to say. I could see the walls coming up behind her eyes. The same walls she'd built around herself when she couldn't face the truth. Where do we go from here? She asked finally, her voice quiet, almost resigned. I stared at her for a long moment, trying to find the words. I don't know. But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending I don't care when I do. I need to find out who I am again. And I need to do that away from you. Her eyes widened. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready to hear what I was saying. But I was done hiding my feelings. Done pretending I didn't matter. I'm not saying it's over, I continued, my voice steady. But I need some space. I need to figure things out, and I can't do that if you keep running everything. The silence stretched between us again, but this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't the silence of neglect. It was the silence of something real, something raw. Anna didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. We both knew this conversation had just changed everything. And as I stood there, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me, I realized something I hadn't before. I was finally starting to take control. The days that followed were quiet. I stayed at a friend's place, needing distance from the suffocating silence of our apartment. At first, Anna didn't call or text much. There was no sudden flood of apologies or attempts to reconcile. She just let me be. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was more like she didn't know how to handle someone finally speaking up. Someone finally saying what I had kept buried for so long. I didn't know what I was doing either. I had made a decision, but now, the weight of it was starting to settle in. How did you even start to fix something so broken? I thought about our years together, how things had shifted so gradually, so imperceptibly, that I hadn't noticed until it was too late. How did I get here? How did I become this man who was too afraid to speak, too afraid to fight for what I wanted? The truth hit me hard during those first few days away. I was angry. Not just at Anna, but at myself. Angry that I had let things go this far. That I had let myself slip into a role I never asked for. I had convinced myself that being passive was easier. That staying quiet was the simpler path. But in the silence, I had lost myself. I spent a lot of time at the small apartment, pacing, trying to figure out what I really wanted. What had I been holding on to all these years? What was I afraid of? I realized I had been afraid of the conflict. Afraid that if I pushed back, if I stood up for myself, everything would fall apart. But now, it already felt like everything had fallen apart. So what did I have to lose? The phone calls started after a couple of days. First it was a text. Can we talk? I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. I didn't want to fall into the same pattern again, where I would give in just to keep the peace. I needed to think. I needed to decide if I even wanted to keep this relationship. She called again the next evening. Alexander, please. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I didn't mean to. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the message. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to go back to the way things were, to go back to the safety of the old routine, where I didn't have to rock the boat. But the other part of me, the part that had been quietly screaming for years, said no. No more pretending. No more silence. I called her back finally. The conversation wasn't what I expected. There were no grand apologies. No promises that things would change. Instead, it was just an awkward, quiet acknowledgement of what had happened between us. She said she understood why I had been angry. She even said she respected that I spoke up. But it was clear to me, from the way she spoke, that she still didn't fully get it. She didn't fully understand the depth of what had been building inside me. She didn't understand how long I had been suffocating in our marriage. How much I had been swallowing just to keep things moving. Just to avoid the confrontation she so desperately wanted to avoid too. I'm willing to work on this, she said after a long pause. But I can't do it alone. I need you to meet me halfway. I didn't know how to respond. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to meet her halfway. I wasn't sure I even wanted to try. Everything felt so fragile, so fractured now. It felt like we were just clinging to the last thread of something that was already gone. I don't know if I can, Anna. I said quietly. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. I need space. I need time to figure out what I want. I need to figure out who I am, without all the noise. There was silence on the other end of the line. She didn't say anything at first, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then, softly, she spoke. I get it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Take the time you need. But I want you to know. I don't want to lose you. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice, and something inside me cracked. Maybe she didn't understand everything. Maybe she didn't see just how far apart we'd grown. But at least she was trying. And for the first time in a long time, I realized something. I wasn't ready to give up on this. Not yet. I'm not ready to give up either, I said, feeling the weight of those words, realizing they were the truth. But we have to change. Things can't stay like this. I agree, she replied. And there was a sincerity in her voice that made me think that maybe, just maybe, she did understand. We'll figure it out. I promise. But as we hung up, I felt the relief I'd been holding in for days. That knot in my stomach loosening just a bit. I wasn't sure where we were going, or even if we were going to be able to make it. But for the first time, I felt like I was standing up for myself. Not just in the apartment, but in our marriage. And that was something. The next few days were filled with a strange mix of uncertainty and clarity. I started thinking about the future. Not the future Anna had planned for us, but the future I wanted. I wasn't ready to make any grand decisions yet, but I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't go back to being invisible. I had to find a way forward. And that meant starting with the most important thing, myself. The days that followed were a blur. I moved back into the apartment, but everything felt different. I still slept in the same bed, ate at the same table, but it wasn't the same anymore. There was no going back. The silence between Anna and me had become something tangible. Something we both avoided. It was as if we were living in the same house but not the same life. We existed side by side, but I didn't feel like I knew her anymore. And I didn't think she knew me either. I spent my days in a haze, trying to keep busy, trying to avoid the constant churn of thoughts in my head. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation we'd had. Anna had said she didn't want to lose me, but was that enough? Was I willing to let go of everything we had built, for the sake of holding on to something that might already be dead? She kept trying to talk to me, asking about the future, asking what I needed, what I wanted. But I didn't know anymore. What did I want? For so long I had been on autopilot, letting her make decisions. Letting her dictate what our life was going to look like. Now that I had started to find my voice again, I was paralyzed by the possibility of making the wrong choice. One evening, Anna came home from work and sat down at the kitchen table with me, her eyes searching mine as if she were trying to read something I wasn't ready to say. The apartment was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city outside. It felt like we were in a vacuum, a bubble that neither of us knew how to break. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice hesitant. "I know things have been difficult between us. I know you're feeling lost, and I get it. I do. But I want to fix this. I want us to work. I don't want to just go on pretending we're okay when we're not. I'm ready to do whatever it takes." I looked at her, and for a moment, I felt the weight of all the years we had spent together. All the things unsaid, all the things ignored, all the ways I had convinced myself it was easier to just let her lead. But now, I wasn't sure I could go back to that. The thought of just letting her take over again made my stomach turn. I had to stand up for myself. I had to figure out what I wanted. "You say you're ready to fix things," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. "But what does that even mean? What does it look like, Anna? Because I'm not going to pretend anymore. I can't keep going along with everything you decide. I can't keep being this invisible man in our relationship." She flinched, her lips pressing together in a thin line. But she didn't interrupt. She just waited for me to continue. "I'm not asking for everything to change overnight. But I can't live in this kind of silence anymore. I need to be heard. I need to matter." The words were coming faster now, more urgent. "For too long. I've let you make decisions for both of us. And it's not that I don't respect you or what you want. But I've lost myself in all of this. I don't know who I am anymore, Anna. I've been too afraid to speak up, too afraid to rock the boat. But I can't keep doing that. I can't keep ignoring my own needs just to keep the peace." Anna's eyes softened, and she reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "I never meant to make you feel that way. I'm sorry, Alexander. I was so focused on what I thought was best that I didn't see what I was doing to you. I didn't see how much I was controlling things. But I see it now. I do." I looked at her hand on mine, feeling a flicker of something inside me. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the idea that, despite everything, we could still find a way to make this work. But then another thought crept in: could I trust her again? Could I believe that things would truly change? Or was this just another empty promise? "I don't know if I can believe you," I admitted, my voice quiet. "I don't know if I can just go back to being the man who goes along with everything you decide. I'm not that person anymore, Anna. I need to know that I'm not invisible. That I matter." She squeezed my hand gently, her expression more vulnerable than I had ever seen it. "You matter, Alexander. You always have. I've just been too blind to see it." For the first time in a long while, I felt like she was actually hearing me. But there was still a part of me that wasn't sure if it was enough. If she could really change. If I could trust her to see me again, to value my opinions and my desires. There was a long pause before I spoke again. "I don't know if I'm ready to go back to how things were. I don't know if I can just pick up where we left off." Anna nodded, understanding. I'm not asking you to. I just want to start over. I want to rebuild. But only if you're willing to try. If you're willing to give us a chance. I took a deep breath, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Was I ready to take that chance? Was I ready to risk everything for the possibility of something better? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing: I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I had to make a choice. I'm willing to try, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. But I need time. I need space to figure this out. I can't just rush back into something I'm not sure about. Anna nodded, her eyes softening with relief. I understand. And I'll give you all the time you need. But please, don't shut me out. Let's figure this out together. I sat back in my chair, feeling a mix of fear and hope. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a choice. And that was something. The next few days passed in a fog, filled with a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. I spent hours pacing around my apartment, turning over the conversation Anna and I had, trying to figure out what it all meant. She was trying. I could see that much, but could I believe her? Could I really trust that this time, things would be different? The hardest part was the waiting. Waiting for myself to figure out what I wanted. Waiting for Anna to show me that she could actually change. But with every passing day, the weight of it all grew heavier. I couldn't keep pretending to be okay when everything inside me was still in turmoil. I had told Anna I needed time, but the truth was, I needed more than time, I needed clarity. I found myself thinking back to that moment in the condo, when I overheard Anna talking about how easily she could manipulate the price, how she'd always get them down. It wasn't just about the apartment. It was about control. It was about her view of me, not as an equal, but as someone who would always just go along with her decisions. For years, I had accepted that role. I had let her lead, let her make all the choices. And somewhere along the way, I had lost my voice. I couldn't keep doing that. I couldn't keep living in her shadow. But as much as I hated to admit it, I still loved her. I still wanted the life we had once dreamed about together. Back when everything was simple, and we were both on the same page. The truth was, I wasn't ready to give up on that. I wasn't ready to just walk away from everything we had built. One evening, after a long day of reflection, Anna called. She didn't say much at first. It was as if she could sense the uncertainty in the air, the tension that had been growing between us. The space I had asked for was slowly turning into a wall that neither of us knew how to scale. I've been thinking, she said quietly, her voice almost tentative. About what you said the other night. About what I've been doing. I know I've been controlling, Alexander. And I know I've hurt you. I don't want to lose you, but I also know I can't keep pretending things are fine when they're not. I sat on the edge of my bed, gripping the phone tightly. I don't want to lose you either, Anna. But I need more than just words. I need actions. I need to see that you're willing to change. I am. She said, her voice steady but soft. But I can't do this alone. I know it's not enough to just say I'm sorry. I need to prove it to you. I need to prove that I can be the partner you need, not the person I've been. Her words hung in the air, a quiet promise laced with uncertainty. But in that moment, I could hear the sincerity in her voice. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could start over and rebuild what we had lost. But there was still that nagging doubt inside me. The one that told me things wouldn't be different. That this was just another cycle, another moment of hope followed by the inevitable disappointment. I had been down this road before, hadn't I? How many times had I told myself that things would get better, only to have them fall apart again? I don't know, Anna, I said after a long pause. I want to believe you, I do. But I'm scared. I'm scared that if we go back to how things were, I'll just end up losing myself again. I can't be the man I've been for the last few years. I can't keep hiding in the background. Anna was quiet for a long moment, and I could almost feel her fear, her own uncertainty. But then she spoke, her voice firm. I don't want you to lose yourself, Alexander. I don't want to keep making decisions without you. I want us to make choices together. I want to be a partner, not a dictator. It was the first time in a long time that I felt like she really heard me. The first time she acknowledged that I had a voice too. But was it enough? Could I truly believe her? Could I believe that things would change? Give me some time, I said quietly. I need to think about all of this. I need to figure out if we can really change. I can't just go back to what we had. I need something more. I need to know that we're in this together, that we're equals. I understand. Anna replied, her voice soft. I'll give you all the time you need. I just need you to know that I'm here. I'm willing to do the work. And I want you to be happy, Alexander. I want to be the partner you need. I hung up the phone and sat there in the dark, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. Could I trust her? Could I trust myself to make the right choice? I didn't know. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the power to decide. The power to choose. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing: I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't just go along with whatever Anna decided. I had to be true to myself. If we were going to move forward, it had to be as equals. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was ready to fight for that. I didn't know where this would lead. I didn't know if Anna and I would find our way back to each other, or if we'd ultimately have to part ways. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. And maybe, just maybe, that truth would lead me to a life where I was no longer invisible. A life where I could finally be myself again. The days after our conversation felt different. For the first time in a long while, there was an openness between Anna and me. She was trying, I could see that. But I was still unsure, still uncertain whether this was the start of something real, or just another attempt at keeping the illusion of a perfect life intact. She was giving me the space I needed. But I was struggling to let go of the fear that things would revert to the way they had always been. I spent hours going over everything: our marriage, my own role in it, and where I stood now. I had been a passive participant in my life for so long that it felt strange to take the reins again. But I couldn't keep living in the shadows of my own existence. I had been afraid of conflict, of stepping out of line, but now I knew that the cost of silence was too high. I was losing myself. It had been a week since that phone call with Anna, and in that time, I had thought out what I wanted, what I needed. I had taken steps, small steps, to reclaim my sense of self. I started focusing on things I had let go of for years: my work, my interests, the things I had pushed aside to make room for Anna's dreams. I signed up for a photography class. Something I had always wanted to do but had never made the time for. I called my old friends, the ones I had lost touch with when everything in my life started revolving around Anna. But the biggest step was the decision I made about us. I sat down one evening, the apartment still, the world outside quiet. I picked up my phone, knowing what I had to do. It was time to talk to Anna again. I had been avoiding it, putting it off, but I couldn't anymore. I needed to know where we stood, and I needed to speak my truth. Anna, we need to talk, I typed, then hesitated. What did I want to say? How could I tell her everything that had been building up inside me? That I loved her, but I couldn't keep living this way. That I needed to be seen, to be heard, not just tolerated or dealt with. I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't ignore my own needs any longer. I took a deep breath and hit send. She replied quickly. I've been waiting for you to reach out. I miss you, Alexander. Can we meet tomorrow? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't going to be easy. But it had to happen. For both of us. The next evening we met at the park. It was quiet, the air crisp, a cool breeze stirring the trees overhead. I saw her waiting by the bench, her posture tense, but there was something softer about her. Something more vulnerable than I had seen in a long time. She looked at me as I approached. And for the first time in what felt like ages, I really looked at her. I noticed the way her eyes had lost some of their usual brightness. The way her smile seemed to falter when she saw me. She wasn't the same confident woman who had always taken charge of everything. There was something raw, something uncertain, and I realized that, in a way, I had never truly seen her either. Not like this. Not until now. Now. Hi, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down beside her, the distance between us still too great, both emotionally and physically. I've been thinking a lot. I started, my words slow, deliberate. About us. About what's been happening between us. Anna nodded, her gaze on the ground. I've been thinking too. I know things aren't easy, and I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I've hurt you, Alexander. I see that now. And I'm sorry. I wish I could take it all back. I turned to face her fully, my voice softening. You don't have to apologize. Not anymore. I need to be honest with you. I've been hiding for so long, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I thought I was keeping the peace. But all I did was lose myself. And I can't do that anymore. I can't keep being this man who just follows along with what you want. I need to be seen. I need to be heard. She looked up at me then, her expression a mix of sorrow and understanding. I hear you, Alexander. I really do. And I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. But I need to know, are you willing to try again? Are you willing to take the risk with me? I felt the weight of her words, the hope in her eyes. She was asking me for something I wasn't sure I could give. But the truth was, I didn't know if I was ready to give up just yet. I had loved her once. And a part of me still did. But I also knew that love wasn't enough if I couldn't stand as an equal in it. I don't know. I said honestly. I don't know if I can just go back to the way things were. But I want to try. I want to figure out if we can make this work, if we can rebuild something new. But I can't do it on my own. I need you to see me. To truly see me. For a long moment, Anna didn't speak. She just looked at me, as if weighing my words, as if deciding whether I was worth the risk. Finally, she nodded, her voice thick with emotion. I will see you. And I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. We sat there for a while, not speaking, just being. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was a quiet understanding that we both had work to do. But maybe, just maybe, we could do it together. As I left the park that night, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. I didn't know where this would go. I didn't know if we would make it through this. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. I wasn't just waiting for things to happen. I was choosing the direction. Maybe that's what I needed all along. An opportunity to take back my own life. And maybe, just maybe Anna and I could rebuild something piece by piece, starting with the truth. As I walked home, I realized that this wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of something new. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to face it.